Tuesday Night Games!
And we want to talk to you about our new game.
That's Not Lemonade by Matt Fantastic.
Take it away, disembodied 1950s voice.
Do you like blackjack, ink and gold, or pass the pigs? If so, you'll love That's Not Lemonade, the yellow treat that's short and sweet. Congratulations! It's lemonade season and business is booming. Unfortunately, you're not the only lemonade stand on the block. This cannot stand. To settle this, you and your rivals have decided to hold a lemonade drinking contest. Drink the most lemonade and you win. But watch out, little Johnny, the neighborhood rascal, has been sneaking around, and you may end up drinking something that's not lemonade. In this super easy to learn press your luck game, you'll take turns hitting or passing. If you get a lemonade or ice card, you're in. But if you get a That's Not Lemonade card, you're out for the round. Collect the most lemons in the round.
Hello, I'm Alan Girding, and this is TKtv. This is the Tuesday Night Games freaking YouTube channel. Welcome! Tonight's a special night because today at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, we went live with our Mothership Kickstarter, our box set. I'm really excited. And as promised, we're going to have a live Q&A right here tonight for the next hour or until the questions die down or we run out of stuff to talk about. But of course, I'm going to be here with my business partner, the love of my life, Sean McCoy. Here we go. Whoa! Look at this. And we already have comments starting, right? The Master Knot says, woohoo! And Miguel says hello. And Todd Pressler says, looks like there's another module in the works. Another bug hunt? Can you give us any info on that? Pretty excited to hear about it. I thought we'd have a little bit of warm-up time to kill, but people were already excited to get on this. So we're already answering questions, Sean.
All right. Am I off mute?
You are off mute. We can hear you. Go ahead.
Perfect.
Let me get our Set Adrift theme music from Daniel Birch going. Let's talk everything Mothership. Oh, it's gorgeous.
So let me talk about another bug hunt. This is an idea we've had for a module for a couple of years now, and we've been blocking it out and plotting it. And we wanted it to be sort of a quintessential starter module that would hit everything we liked about Mothership. That would have something to do with an actual mothership, that would be like dealing with aliens, in this case, the bugs, on a strange new world, and also sort of be our take on like B1, keeping the Borderlands, and all these other sort of classic starter adventures like Sailors on the Starless Sea by Goodman Games. So we've broken it up into 3 to 5 one-shots that are meant to be played in 2 to 4 hours online or in person or on stream or on your podcast, completely separately as one-shots, but that can tie together with a narrative if you want. But they're all meant to be focused on sort of different styles of play: mysteries, investigation, more of an action violence-y one, more of an exploration-based one. It's going to be a slimmer module than some of our others, especially slimmer than the 60-page gauntlet that is Gradient Descent. But we're really trying to focus on beginner stuff, like getting in, creating a mood, really enjoying taking your time and building on that. We're super, super excited about it. It's going to deal with coming out of hyperspace and landing on a planet to make a delivery to a advanced terraforming team that's there, as well as what we call a SAC team, a sweep and clear team. But you've had a jump malfunction and you are over a year late. And so they've kind of gone rogue. Everybody's a little on edge, supplies are low, and they're under siege by these alien bugs from this thing called the Anthill. So we're working on it. We really, really enjoy it. We're going to start play testing it pretty soon here. But that's like the basics of another bug hunt. I'm really excited to see us hit that stretch goal, because to me and Alan, we've talked about this before. There were times when we were looking at costs and weighing what we should keep and what we should toss, and we really want to have a starter adventure in there. So if we can afford it, we're going to put one in there, because there's nothing better than picking up a game, opening the box, and knowing I can play this tonight. Wouldn't you say, Alan?
Absolutely. I mean, the one big question we had is, what is a complete box set? You need everything you could possibly need to play right in there, with maybe the exception being pencils. So people have asked, is there going to be a dice? Yes, there's dice. And I think having that adventure is great, and having a good taste of adventures is going to be wonderful. Going back to the questions, because we're probably not going to be able to answer all of them because they're so rapid fire. We're getting a lot of congratulations. A lot of people are saying we're so close to 500,000. So exciting. Can't wait. But we did have one question going back, because I'm going to do my best not to neglect anyone. And so I'm looking at these, and it looks like Mike Shatube. Will the dice be available as an add-on or standalone purchase?
Not currently at this moment. We have a question with our manufacturer, Ludofact US, about segmenting out the different pieces and different components and selling them separately. Some of those are easier. So like the deluxe warden screen is a possibility because we can shrink wrap it and slap a label on it very, very, affordably. With the dice, it's a little bit more difficult because of packaging. We'd have to maybe make a blister pack. So we're probably a no on that right now. We might do our own dice line later in the future, but we're not like a dice company. So we'll have more on that later as that information comes in from our manufacturer. But right now it's like a soft no.
Okay. I know that in our frequently asked questions and also in our comments, people have been asking a lot about the add-ons. Will the pamphlets be add-ons? Sean?
So in terms of books, all the books you'll be able to buy as add-ons. You could buy extra copies of the Warden's Guide. You could buy all the modules, the pamphlets, all that sort of stuff. The things that you can't get as add-ons are anything that was Kickstarter exclusive. So that means like Cloudbank patches, Tempest Code patches. Those were Kickstarter exclusive. So we don't have those as add-ons for this campaign.
Here's another big question. Will they be able to add on this patch right here? Boop.
No. So that's going to be Kickstarter exclusive for people who've backed within the first 48 hours.
Which is still
we
going
sort of
on.
Talked about this, which is still happening
on.
right now. You still have time. We talked about this with Backer Kit, who's doing a lot of our marketing. And everything we've learned is that the first 48 hours is the most important in your campaign for setting the tone, momentum, getting placement on Kickstarter, your ads, knowing like where to put your energy in marketing. And that's why it's there. And so it is an incentive for sure. But we've only got it for these 48 hours for that exact reason. So you won't be able to add it on later, unfortunately. Oh, nice. You can add on extra copies of the core set. You can add on extra copies of the deluxe set. You cannot add on a copy of a box without any of the contents in it. I know a lot of people are wondering about, can I get the deluxe box but without the modules, or can I get, the deluxe box with 2 copies of Pound of Flesh, 3 copies of Player's Guide? And it's no, they come as they come. This is going to be a very difficult campaign logistically to manage. We've never done one this big before, and so it makes a lot more sense for us to keep it as simple as humanly possible. That's why we have the storage box. So if you need extra storage, get some more storage boxes.
I'm stoked for that storage box. It's those little things that people that don't know think, wow, how are you excited about a box? But man, I've wanted one. Here's some questions that I know the answer to. Are the deluxe modules updated for first edition? Yes, everything that you're getting through this Kickstarter is updated first edition. So if you're getting it through this Kickstarter, first edition is there. You already answered the question, how thick will the book be? But then here's a fun question.
Wait, what was the question? How thick will what book be?
I believe they were talking about Bug Hunt, and you answered how thick Bug Hunt will be.
Yeah, it'll be between 16 to 32 pages.
You want to just answer that for all the books, or is that...
Sure, yeah. So Player Survival Guide is going to be roughly the same, 44 to 48, maybe 52 pages, depending on where some content lands. The Warden's Operations Manual is maxed out. It's going to be 60 pages, pretty much the biggest we can go with saddle stitch booklets. Depending on how many horrors we unlock for unconfirmed contact reports, we might get close to maxing that one out too. I think right now it's at like 48, 52 pages. Because each individual horror is going to be its own page or spread if it has the content for it. And that means, we need that sort of extra page count for each one. Because it's not like in basic Dungeons and Dragons, you can have goblins, 1 HD plus 1, and you're done. But in this, we need to give you the snippets and the rumors and the full page art that you can share with your players. So it's really important that each horror gets their own page. That's all the books, yeah.
I will say, for everyone watching this, we apologize if we don't get your question. We only have so much time, and I'm doing our best here, so please bear with us. We appreciate you, and keep in mind, we'll do our best to answer comments. I know I've been answering comments and messages all day in Kickstarter, and they're coming quicker than we can answer them. So if you are a backer on our Kickstarter page, or even if you are on our YouTube channel right now watching this and you know some of the answers to the questions, feel free to share. It's a community effort, right? It takes a village. But I didn't want to skip this one. This one caught my eye because this is a fun question from Archmagus Lewin. Do you consider Mothership an OSR game? Why or why not? First of all, Sean, what is OSR?
OSR stands for Old School Renaissance or Old School Revival. It refers to a period of time where, right before 5e came out, a lot of people were sort of rejecting 3rd edition, 4th edition Dungeons & Dragons and finding a lot of inspiration in original Dungeons & Dragons, BX, Holmes Basic, AD&D, and sort of discovering this play style that had really kind of been lost to time, and then iterating on that and creating their new thing. Mothership grew out of that community for sure. I was in the OSR and reading all the blogs, and a lot of my design principles came out of that. I think it takes a different term than OSR to describe us, whether you want to call that new OSR or whatever. But it was informed by a lot of the principles, particularly about layout and design, lethality, rulings over rules, a lot of that stuff, but applied to a different genre, sci-fi horror, and to a different rule set. This is D100 Roll Under, which is closer to Call of Cthulhu or basic role playing, or Empire of the Petal Throne, or Rune Quest. It still has that old school lineage, but it wouldn't necessarily. A lot of the assumption of a lot of OSR games is that they're cross-compatible, that they're all sort of using this lingua franca. Anyway, they're all using this common language of basic Dungeons and Dragons to be cross-compatible and pick up some of that stuff, which obviously Mothership isn't a part of, being a completely different system. But our heritage is definitely in the OSR from the beginning, for sure.
Absolutely. All right, this one's a Q1. We'll answer this really quick because it's not about Mothership necessarily, but someone asks, how do I learn to do layout/info design well? And I know Sean is, I'm totally biased of course, but Sean's layout is the best I've ever seen. And so I always try to mock Sean, and I believe my design game has really upped itself as far as layout because of Sean. And I think the answer to that question is similar to how do you best design a game? And I think there's 3 to 4 major ways. And one of those ways is you just take all the inspiration you can and you fake it until you make it. And that's a very known artistic thing, is that you find inspiration, you copy it as best as you can, and then you slightly adjust it and make your own. I know in game design, another approach is you truly find what you're in touch with, what you feel is missing. So if there's a game out there that you think, man, how come no one's made this game? That's a good indication you should make it. And I think layout's the same way, but I'm not the layout master. Sean, you want to spend a good 20 seconds answering that?
No, I think you hit it. Like you have to copy. The biggest questions I can hit that are easy for me are to just ask yourself, like, how can I present this information as quickly and as easy to understand as possible? And sometimes that's just blank text and simple prose, and sometimes it's a diagram or an illustration. Read from a wide variety of different sources. Start to build your taste. Alan's a really good graphic designer in that he's constantly thinking. So you design a lot of stuff for school, right? Like you do a lot of graphics for your students. So you're constantly thinking about, how can I teach this idea? How can I make it fun? How can I make little dots to fill in? That kind of stuff. And so it's not just about making things pretty or knowing the software. It's about relaying that information and getting that information across in a way that's, for us, our value is quickly. Over beauty. For us, I think it's function over form every single time. So yeah, just like Alan said, stick to your influences, copy a lot, and figure out what it is that you're trying to get out of it.
Steve Daniel asked, will there be a Mothership Heist mashup?
Oh man, so Heist is a game that we've had in development for a while, which is a modern day crime thievery game. We've got some really cool ideas about how to build that product and that product line out that I can't wait to share with you guys. Probably not, but I wouldn't.
I would say why not? Because that sounds something you
Fair
could even
enough.
do unofficially. Like you could take the heist rules and apply them to a Mothership setting.
I love it.
Or
Well,
vice
if Alan
versa.
thinks we should do it, then we'll do it.
Yeah. If anything, I mean, because one of my favorite things, I've been playing a crap ton of Mothership throughout the years. And not just stepping on your toe, Sean. Definitely
No.
more than you. You've been designing it, and I've been consuming it.
Oh yeah.
And I would love a heist, because I know my players, and they would love to have an intergalactic heist. That sounds amazing. Thank you so much for the questions. Where will the faction rules be?
In the Warden's Guide. So basically, we have some generative tools about criminal organizations, corporations, religious groups, unions, and governments. And so we want to generate, we want to make it easy for you to generate those factions, and then to have not like a faction turn, but some guidelines about how to keep factions interesting and moving in the background, such that the goal when you're doing campaign prep is for the campaign to prep itself, basically. And factions are a way that you can always have new ideas coming at you, and so you don't have to come up with everything from scratch.
I love it. Okay. We're getting a lot of questions that have already been answered, but let me ask this one. What's up with this Dave bloke I keep hearing about? A lot of people are commenting on Dave. Should we talk about Dave?
No comment.
No comment? Okay. Because I could talk all day long about Dave. All right. Sorry for all those Dave lovers out there. Okay. Will the modules be updated to reflect the newer rules? We already said yes. What's the size difference between the core and deluxe? Because it looks a bit big to fit onto a shelf. I'm so glad someone asked that question.
So glad.
We're getting that question so much in the comments section because people are saying that the deluxe box is too big for their bookshelf. Sean, you want to take this, or do you want me to?
So here's a prototype copy of the core set, right? It was roughly based on the Traveler and original Dungeons and Dragons box sets. It's basically
Do you
the
have a
exact same
zine on
size.
you? Do you have the zine on you so you can hold up a
Let's see
zine?
here. I might have one in the box.
He's opening the box. If you're wondering what Sean is doing, he's opening the box.
I don't have a zine right at hand. We just reorganized this
But
room.
would you say that the zine has a little bit of extra space in the box?
So basically, like the back of the box is the size of a zine with just like a tiny bit of give, so it fits snugly, doesn't rattle around too much, but isn't impossible to get out. And then obviously the overhang is the extra eighth inch, for the box
Right.
top, right? So that's the core set. It's meant to snugly fit the half liter zines very, very cleanly, right?
Core box versus the storage boxes for your previously purchased zines, Sean.
The exact same size.
Boom.
The storage box is exactly the same size as the core set, so it should fit actually more zines because there won't be any accessories in here like a ward screen or whatever.
Right. of
So,
course.
For the deluxe box, it's just two of these side by side. So I don't have a prototype of the deluxe box, but I do have something that's pretty popular on a lot of people's shelves, the D&D starter set, right? And essentially, if you look at it, it's just half the size of a starter set, right? So if you put two of these next to each other, you have basically the size of the deluxe box because it's two zines next to each other, 3 core books, 3 modules, right? New warden screen. Again, everything's built to fit snugly in that box. Yes, it's horizontal. You could turn it on its side, whatever, but it should be totally fine for your shelf.
Yes, that is Talisman you see in the background of Sean's. I want to answer that since I just saw that right there. All right, we're getting a lot of questions about the scope of the changes between 0 edition and 1st edition. And we can answer some very specific questions. We're going to cover that a lot next week at 8:30, not a live episode. But Sean and I have actually already recorded a conversation between the two of us where we detail a lot of the differences. But we hate saying, oh, you'll find out, because you tune into this Q&A to get your answers to your questions. So in generic terms then, Sean, where we can let people ask very specifically, how much of a drastic change should people expect between 0 edition and 1st edition?
They're minor changes with big impacts. It's not like the difference between 3rd and 4th edition D&D, where the games are kind of roughly compatible but completely different play styles. The big things that have changed are the damage numbers are lower because the players are on the wound system, which is the old hit system that monsters were on, and we got rid of armor saves. Those are the things that are going to need to change in the old modules. So like if you have damage that's 5d10 in an old module, that might be 3d10 or 1 wound in the 1st edition, right? So it wouldn't be incompatible, it would just be more dangerous. All the 0 edition modules are just more dangerous. They might make reference to an armor save, right? We don't use armor saves anymore, we use armor points, but again, you could pretty much look up what the armor points are of that exact armor in the new rulebook and convert those over. Again, our new stretch goal that we're very close to hitting, the conversion kit, we'll cover all that stuff with some light commentary on why we made those changes. There's other stuff like we got rid of levels and XP, but that doesn't really affect the modules at all. We rewrote some of the explanations. We rebalanced the panic table and some of the character creation. Again, that doesn't really affect the modules. The only things we're going to be going back into the modules to fix are changing the damage numbers, swapping out armor saves for AP, if they're even mentioned, which most of the time they aren't. And that's really it. So they're minor changes. The game would still work. It would just be more dangerous and occasionally be going, they've got an armor save of 65. Let's call that AP 5, you know. It'd be very, very, very easy to not update those if you had to.
I think this is fair to say. Most people will be very happy with the changes because I think most people will say there are improvements, as this was an early access thing and a lot of the changes come from feedback and playtesting after playtesting. So it's just tighter and cleaner. I'll also say that the changes are simple enough that I don't think anyone should be really flipping the table over the changes. As you already said, it's not like going from 3.5 to 4th edition in D&D, or this is a totally new game. In fact, if you're expecting big, vast changes, you'll be pretty disappointed in the fact that it's not vast changes. All right, my screen just jumped a little bit. I having a little technology issues, and I'm back on track. All right. There are some fun questions in here. So many good questions. A lot of people are still bemoaning the fact that we're not talking about Dave. If you had to pick a single module that has been produced by Tuesday Night Games for Mothership to run with a new group, which one would it be? Not new to role-playing, new to Mothership. Which module would you choose?
You want to take this one?
I mean, I'm horribly biased. You know what my answer is going to be. I love Pound of Flesh so much. Whether that's good for people to start off with, I'm not sure. It depends if you're starting off as players or as the warden. If you're starting off as the warden, you want to start with a one-shot. Definitely a one-shot. So Dead Planet is much more friendly because when you're looking at the Horror of the Alexis, that is basically a great one-shot to start with. But man, I just love diving into Pound of Flesh so much because that is true world building. It's a living world, and my players feel like they know it and they miss it. You have key characters and it's not overwhelming. It's just, I'm gushing. I'm sorry. But yeah, Pound of Flesh is, I know I'm biased. It's my favorite module I've ever played, hands down, by a long shot. And I've played Castle Ravenloft. So yeah, I think that's, but of course I'm biased.
I love A Pound of Flesh. A Pound of Flesh is very much written with myself in mind of the way I like to run games. But it would be a toss-up for me for like very, very first-time players between The Haunting on Ipsilon 14, just a classic one-shot, very, very deadly, very simple premise that a lot of players can get their hands behind. A lot of cool NPCs. And then I'm kind of a sucker for Gradient Descent. Because I would just love to throw new players in there, get started. It's a beast, it's deadly, it's weird, but it's such a huge space to explore. And there's so much to interact with. And so I really like that for players as well. My hope is that, you know, in a year, my answer will be another bug hunt, because that's really the point there, is to make it the perfect, like, you've never played before,
adventure.
Boom, let's roll.
Yeah, no. Gradient Descent's a good choice, though, because it is that mega dungeon, And you can play Gradient Descent again and again and again, even with the same players if they manage to survive. And there's always content, and it's very easily accessible because it's all laid out with that brilliant design idea where the map is referenced in the page numbers. Why other modules haven't thought of that, I'm not sure. So if you're looking at that map and they move into room like 103, you know, like, oh, I have to go to page 103. I don't think the pages go up to 103, so that was a bad example. But anywho, Red Crovey says, for those of us that do not own Zero Edition adventure modules, will you make those available to us digitally until first edition drops? I hate to buy those when I've already pledged for the first edition versions.
So I'll answer a few questions in one here right now. Like, if you get the deluxe box set, you're going to be getting the first edition modules: Dead Planet, Pound of Flesh, Gradient Descent. They'll be updated, etc. Our editing team, led by Jarrett Crater, is going to be editing those modules every 6 weeks to 2 months, depending on the schedule, and putting out one of those regularly while the other content's being finished. So if you've gotten the deluxe set, you're going to be getting a steady stream of modules while you're waiting for the core rules to come out in PDF form, not in print, obviously. 2, we will start printing the first edition modules. I'm not sure when. We haven't talked about that, but yeah, we're going to start switching over to the first edition pretty immediately. They'll be obvious to tell apart because they're going to have UPC codes on the cover for our fulfillment, so they're going to have a UPC code. The Zero Edition stuff won't. But yeah, we are going to start selling the first edition modules just like we'd sell everything else. But the timing of that, we haven't exactly worked out when those are going to drop, and when would be best to be, least confusing.
Will we be getting these by November, or are we dirty liars, Sean?
By November 2022?
Yeah.
That's my hope. Here's the big risk. So the player's survival guide is pretty much done. It's about 95% done, but it's awaiting like a couple art pieces and some example text. So we're going to release that to you guys basically when the Kickstarter funds get released to us as a work in progress draft. Nothing's like finished till it goes to print, but this is like pretty finished. That way you guys can start playing immediately. Lindsay and I are having a baby in December. So that's going to throw a kink in the works. We have a toddler right now. So that's going to be hard, but where's my hand go? Yeah.
Hit your shoulder. Nice work, you.
We're going to be having a baby. That's going to throw a kink in the works for a little bit, but we've got unconfirmed contact reports that's being written and illustrated by an amazing team right now. The Warden's Guide is like 85% written. I've done most of that, blocked it all in, and I kind of write in layout at the same time. That's how I work. So we're getting more art and that kind of stuff. If we unlock another bug hunt stretch goal, we've got it well developed and like outlined, but it's not been written yet. So that'll be the big thing that, like, if we hit that stretch goal, we're gonna put the pedal to the metal to get that one sort of done. If we hit the Shipbreaker's Guide toolkit, that one's a little closer to being done just because we're taking all that content out of the player's guide, making its own book, and then getting designs done for the Shipbreaker's toolkit.
We just hit $500,000! We just hit $500,000!
God.
I'm gonna make you disappear for a second, Sean. Oh my goodness, congrats on $500,000. That's ridiculous. So sorry to interrupt, but we had a request for us to check it out while we roll over to 500,000.
It's insane.
It's ridiculous.
How long have we been doing this, Alan?
We're almost at 10 years here. We're about to have our 10-year anniversary.
That's crazy.
Yeah, 10 years. Did you ever think we'd have a $500,000 Kickstarter?
I did, but I thought it would be World Championship Russian Roulette.
That's a good point. We thought, well, if we did $102,000 on 2 Rooms and a Boom, it's only to get better and better and better. Man, we totally underestimated 2 Rooms and a Boom. But
we got really lucky. It's a great game. We love it. But also there was so much we hadn't learned about the business, marketing, like supply chains, that I feel like we could do a lot better with some of these games if we re-kickstarted them today.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it was sort of like we got lucky and then we had to build up to like earn that again. But It's been an amazing road.
Yeah, and I'm not ashamed of any of those games. I think
No,
the
they
big
did
problem
phenomenal.
is that those games just don't hit the table and don't hit the market. But enough about that. We're here for Mothership.
We're doing a whole other episode about that.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. You want the next question or did you answer? Because I totally interrupted. Okay.
What was the next question? Yeah.
Next question is the Master Knot says, I want to know more about Wounds.
I'm so sorry. They were asking if it's going to be ready by November 2020.
Yeah.
We're printing in the US. That takes out a huge chunk of time with shipping, fulfillment, China, all that sort of stuff. We're doing everything we can to hit November 22. That's why the timeline is so far out, is while we're pretty close to done with a lot of stuff, we want to make every opportunity to make sure we hit that deadline.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the big reasons that we're able to do this Kickstarter is the printing in America because of the whole kerfuffle that's going on right now. All right, ready for the next question then?
Hit me, yeah.
All right, so the answer to that one is we're trying our best for November. We said November because we think we can make it. So we're not trying to overpromise here. All right, the Masternaut says, tell me about Wounds. They're a bit confusing. I can take that one in part, and I hate doing this. We'll talk way more about Wounds when it comes to next week's episode because we go into depth about Wounds. We'll also have Wounds in our actual play that's coming up in the coming weeks on Tuesday nights at 8:30 as well. But I'll tell you this, the Master Knot. The Wounds are definitely a little bit of a learning curve as every little mechanic is in all games. And so the question is always, is the juice worth the squeeze? Is this little bit of learning worth the change? And obviously we're biased, but the answer is yes, to the point where I'm confident that when people get acclimated to the wound system, they'll have a hard time remembering the old way because it really fits in thematically. And once you learn it, it seems very natural. Is that fair to say, Sean?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially to the generation that grew up playing video games, because like each wound is basically a life bar that has a certain amount of hit points. You lose a life bar and something bad happens to you, and that's really all there is to it.
Ben Kelly asks, is there a middle divider so the zines don't slide when you put it sideways?
I say zines, but yes.
Sorry.
Yeah,
I read it zines. I know it's zines. My bad.
We wanted a vacuum tray, but our manufacturer said that we couldn't do that over here in the States with the machining. But yeah, there's going to be like a divider of some kind. We haven't designed it exactly if it's going to be like just like a cardstock fold or if they're going to be cardstock wells. But yeah, they're not going to be like bumping into each other.
Cool. Jens says, I love the idea for the new level system, playing around with giving XP for panic checks. Can you explain why you changed it?
It has a big thing to do for me with my huge influence, which is Traveler. In Traveler, you don't level up, you don't really gain new skills or improve at all, which I thought, even for a game back then, is very kind of ballsy. For me, I wanted to go back to this as a horror game, and your character doesn't improve, you improve. You get better at playing the game. The character is what they call pawn stance in theory, but it's the controller. It's like playing Dark Souls, right? Like you get better at learning the moves. The character itself is basically inert. Obviously, you level up in Dark Souls, but the point is here, your saves become better. You become less fearful, more stable, more hardy, but I didn't want to create this system of like leveling up and the stat improvement. I wanted you to know going in that like, this is going to be hard. You're a real human person in a dangerous situation. Keep your wits about you. And we got to cut out a lot of stuff about like scaling and counterbalance and all that sort of thing. And really keep it to characters that have lived a long time because the players have played really well. And that's something that I enjoy a lot.
How soon can everyone expect the PDF versions? Do they have to wait till November or will they come out sooner? Because people want to play this ASAP.
So we've answered this a lot and I'll go over it again, but basically the player survival guide will come out a couple weeks after the Kickstarter ends. Then the modules will be coming out every 6 weeks or so, depending on when the editing team gets to them. Unconfirmed contact reports and the Warden's operations guide will come out closer to when they are print ready. But basically, like as soon as they're ready and we feel like we have a workable draft that you guys can play with, they'll be released. We don't have timelines on exactly when those two will be released, but it'll be at least hopefully like 3 or 4 months before November, because we have to have time to print and ship and all that stuff.
But here's the new follow-up, Sean. The new follow-up is, if players find typos and they report them, is there changes that can happen in the PDF that would lead to the final printing?
So this is sort of a nuanced answer. Like, we have a world-class editing team, so we're not asking for typo hunting help right now. When we release this stuff, we're also going to release with a playtesting feedback form, and we're interested in one thing very specifically. When did you play and what happened at the table? We're not super interested in like, I read it and I think that the shotgun is overbalanced. Like, that's great. I'm glad you think that. What I am interested in is, we played it and my character got a shotgun and killed 10 aliens in one hit, blah, 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 blah. Like, relay to me the information you guys are getting from playtesting, not necessarily like, I don't like this, you know. We're not looking to focus group the game. We believe in what we're doing. That doesn't mean we don't want feedback from you guys, but the game has been play tested for the last 3 years. We feel pretty confident about these changes, but we are looking for what's happening at your table. But we'll have a form for you to submit all those kinds of bug reports, and we will look into those, before we go to print.
It's not crazy that someone might find something that our editing team and playtesters miss, so please don't say we're saying don't send us anything you find. That is definitely not what we're saying.
But mostly what I want to nip in the bud is, I don't want to like hop on the Discord server in 5 weeks and have somebody be like, on page 54 you spelled it blah 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 blah. It's like, yeah, we know, we'll get to that.
Yeah, we get that.
Go through the appropriate channels, fill out the feedback form, and we'll definitely take a look at it.
Getting a couple of questions about the patch. So with the patch, what exact pledge level do they need to pledge in order to get the patch? Does
any physical play level? No, any physical pledge level. Yeah. Core set, deluxe set, mega bundle, and you get it.
All right. Reese Carter says, I really enjoyed playing Gradient Descent with you, Alan. Thanks, Reese. That's not a question at all. Sorry, I don't want to neglect everybody. What will be shown on the Warden screen?
The Warden screen. I'm pretty excited
on our side.
About this one. Yeah, on our side. So on the back side, I'm designing these like very thematic control panel type stuff that look like sort of like a ship's, user interface. And right now it's got stuff like the critical hit table, the panic table, some of the common tables that you want to reference. But my big thing that I don't want to do is have it just be a rules reference. That's the like classic GM screen thing, is like, I want all the rules here. The rules in Mothership are dead simple, and we put all the rules on the back of the player's guide so that you can reference them. Instead, I want to give you some tools to do things like come up with damage for different weapons on the fly, or invent a monster on the fly. That's the kind of stuff I want to have, so that you can have like encounters and create stuff and have generative like content for when, as a warden, you're out of creative ideas right then and there, as opposed to, I forgot that doubles are critical hits, because it's just not that complicated a game. So I wanted to use that space. Again, it's the Warden screen. It's a screen that's supposed to help the Warden, to where you're excited to open it up. You're excited to use it as a toy. You're not just going like, I can't remember if I'm supposed to roll under or over. That stuff's on the back of the player's guide. It fits on half a piece of paper. So it's meant to be used as a generative, creative tool.
All right. John Doe asks, was SCP an influence at all? It feels it a little like looking at the unconfirmed contact reports. Also, he says he loves the art for the monsters that we've shared on the Kickstarter page.
Oh, thank you. I'm super excited about that. That book, the SCP Foundation, if those of you don't know, is like a collaborative fiction project online where people write these entries about containment. I think it's special containment procedure, something like that. But it's basically like aliens and horrors and that kind of stuff, and they write these little short narratives. We've worked with some writers who've like written heavily for that foundation, for that project too. But it was a slight inspiration for sure, but more the inspiration was just that I wanted to have content that the players could use and the wardens could use. It's like if you play BioShock and you're rummaging through a trash and you find $100 and a shotgun and like a reel of audio recording, then it's like, oh, the specimen number 54, has unique powers. I wanted it to be something like that because horrors in Mothership are different than monsters in D&D. They're not just an obstacle to be overcome. They're a puzzle that has to be solved, and there's sort of a mystery that has to be solved, right? So we wanted to give these like snippets and firsthand accounts that players could find on a journal or a broken terminal or written on the walls in blood, and that you could give those to your players as real clues as to what these monsters can do. So SCP, minor inspiration for me, for sure, maybe for the other writers even more, but really it was about getting to this thing where the monster book was not just a stat line and a description of what they look like, it was in-game stuff players could use.
Cool. Calm Patwell asks, important question for whatever MRPG-M4 will be. What will be the primary color you will use for the zine? Love the rust red, the hot pink, and the slate cyan of the first three. What's the next color going to be?
Right now we're tooling around with orange and green. It's like that terminal orange, terminal green, grainy colors. We've got a cover mock-up for another bug hunt that we could share at a later date. But it's really leaning into the orange and green on that one. Kind of jungly colors almost.
Eric Babin asks, will the player's guide PDF for first edition still be pay what you want?
We haven't talked about that a ton, but it's important to me that just philosophically, the game itself is free to all, or pay what you want, right? That like people can play and they can get in and make their own content, and that there's no barrier to entry to play. So without, any other information, Alan, I think you believe in this strongly too. We've always released free print and play versions of our games. And I think it's served us pretty well. So I'm almost positive that it will be.
Yeah. The big philosophy behind Tuesday Night Games, when Sean and I got together and started this whole company, was we had three main goals. And one of the primary goals was to have fun and spread that fun around. So when you get into these penny pinching practices, we don't think that's goodwill. And we think that our Kickstarter today is great evidence of how that goodwill is paid off. Give people what we can afford to give away for free, and if they like it, they'll ask for more. So I really appreciate everyone.
Richard Lanius, if you're watching this.
Yeah, quick timeout story. Richard Lanius from Arkham Horror fame called us idiots. And every time he sees us to this day, even though we haven't seen him since quarantine, he's like, still giving your games for free, huh? Still pretty poor? He's always ripping on us for giving games away for free. And anyway, so yeah.
We love it. Sean. So yeah, I think the player's guide will remain pay what you want. And I think the box set is a great argument for why you would want to buy the physical version, because it's going to have so much great stuff in it.
Yeah, we had a good conversation before we even started this live stream about why would people get a physical version when they can save money on the PDF version, etc. And I think it has to do with different strokes for different folks. Some people just want the content, they don't care how they get it. But some people are collectors and they want that physical smell. They want to be able to write in their book, write in the margins, etc. So I think with the box set, that's just that, an extra level with the deluxe set. Ready for the next question?
Hit me. Let's do it.
I'm not sure we know the answer to this one. When will Roll20 be updated?
We've been talking to our developer about that. That's the hardest part with Roll20, is that we're not programmers, so we're reliant on other people. Our developer is very busy at the moment, but they are working through some of the bug reports we've seen from there. And then as the Kickstarter ends, we're hoping in the new year to start getting more modules on Roll20. We're talking to them about doing a Pound of Flesh once their backlog sort of clears up. So sorry that, there's some issues there. We're working on it as best we can. If it was something that Alan and I could handle ourselves, we would, but we're kind of hamstrung right now by, just like the team that we have over there. They're a great team. It's just Roll20 is super swamped.
Yeah, and to be honest, I wouldn't know how to do it even if I had the time to. So speaking of digital and other content, Sean, what service are people going to be receiving their PDFs?
Drive-through RPG.
Is there any other, or is it all drive-through RPG?
We've done a weird thing before where like BackerKit lets you do it, and then you could do it through DriveThruRPG. We might do it through our store. I think right now it's going to be DriveThruRPG primarily. That's the one that almost everybody has. That's where we sell our PDFs. Stay tuned on that. If we have some other weird, confusing way we're going to do it, we might give you a couple options. But for now, probably DriveThruRPG.
Any license changes? Asks Harry Coins.
To the third-party license, the third-party license has been updated since I think the one that's currently on the Discord, just to be clearer and that kind of thing. But nothing major that I've seen.
Here's a question that I don't understand, Sean, so maybe you will. Official Foundry VTT support?
So yeah, Foundry fans love Foundry. And Foundry's basically like Roll20, and it's been a huge ask to put all of our content up on the Foundry. Right now, we've started with Roll20. Roll20 is bringing in money. We're going to support that until it's like totally self-sufficient, and then we're going to use that money to support other programs. Foundry is very high on the list. Its fans are very devoted and always asking for it. So we'll get to it as soon as we can. Hey,
nice.
Nate.
Yeah, it's great seeing everyone comment. Here is an interesting one. You have any advice for other game designers out there?
I'm going to give this one to Alan for sure, because Alan is probably my favorite game designer on the planet, and I wouldn't be in this business without him.
Keep stopping it, you.
I learned how to be a game designer from working with Alan, basically. So yeah, what do you think? What's your game designer advice?
You know, it's the same thing in almost any job that you would hear, whether it be becoming an actor or becoming a lawyer, and that's, you really have to love what you do. You can't have a goal of money or fame or accreditation in mind. If you're doing it for some type of
external
reward or even internal validation, those aren't the right reasons. I forget who famous said it. Someone way smarter than me said, you'd be amazed at what you can accomplish when you don't take the credit for it.
Oh God, yeah, it's actually this asshole. There's this book called The Power Broker about this guy who like kind of ruined New York City. But he was like, yeah, you'd be amazed with what you can accomplish if you're willing to let somebody else take the credit.
He stole it though, because it's definitely a famous expert.
Okay, cool.
I think it was Truman who said it. So, if I remember correctly. But yeah, it wasn't this power broker for sure that is accredited with that saying. But point is, you want to do it for the love of the cardboard, for the love of the dice. Do it for fun. I have an insane amount of design games that I have, honestly, a lot of people angry at me that they can't get. Like, hey, how come I can't buy Hansa yet? Or how come Dragon's Head isn't available, etc.? What's going on with story? Like, I have all these games, and it's one of these things. It's like, well, in due time. But there's definitely this whole practice of just creating and designing for fun and seeing it make people happy, and that's where the fun comes in. The business aspect of it is almost something totally separate. So, you know, make something and then set it free. And if it was meant to be, then it will start raining down on you. I'm not as successful as Sean is now that this Kickstarter is doing great. So I think, Sean, you're more than apt to answer that question than me at this point. You're a great person. I'm glad I married you.
Yeah, this has been a great partnership. That's a huge thing. Like, find a good partner and work through all your whatever kerfuffles, creative disagreements, and sort of find a good relationship there. Yeah, the rewards for I was telling this to Lindsay that, like, I remember I was at Alan's house on Two Rooms and a Boom 8 years ago, and I was at Alan's house and I went for a drive and I went and saw some Jake Gyllenhaal boxing movie, and I drove back and I was like, I don't feel different. I don't feel better. I don't feel fixed. I don't feel unbroken. And it was like, oh, right, like funding or making a lot of money on Kickstarter is not going to fix any of those parts of me. Like, the reward in making the games, like, if you don't enjoy making the games, making money on Kickstarter is not going to solve that. Like, making money will solve material problems and definitely improve your life. I don't want to say that, like, money's not valuable, but for starting game designers, like, learn to enjoy the process, learn to enjoy making the prototype, playtesting it, being wrong, breaking it, getting feedback. Like, if you can enjoy that stuff, you will stick with it long enough to make good games. But if you're like, oh, it's not going to be good until I have a good Kickstarter, you're never going to enjoy this, and it's going to take you forever to get anywhere.
And again, that's true in all aspects of life. Seriously, you got to be doing it for the right reasons, not to get too zen or whatever, but it's actual positive psychology. It's been researched that if your goal is those external rewards and incentives, you're chasing the dragon. You're never going to catch it. You've got to look for more of that internal satisfaction of the immediate, what's making you happy, etc. Let's get to some actual Mothership questions. Very specifically, will the PDFs be bookmarked? Asks Samuel Tenius.
We're working with a great designer, Dai Sugars, to make the PDFs very accessible. Dai has done a phenomenal job with dealing with accessibility. They're also an incredible graphic designer in their own right, but it's not a skill set that I have. And so Dai is going to go through all those PDFs and get them bookmarked and hyperlinked and all that sort of stuff.
Sean asks Jordan Jensen, any feelings about replacing interior illustrations of the survival guide with new art? How dare you? How dare you? But
We've done that a bunch. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's tons of new art in the player's guide. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. But how dare you? I love the originals. So endearing. Although I will admit, there is some, that new art is, you see some on the Kickstarter page, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
All right. Jen asked, in trying to keep the scientific feel of sci-fi, did you consult any scientific experts in research for writing?
Absolutely not.
Yeah. How dare you? Again, who do you think?
A lot of our playtesters and developers are hard sci-fi people, and so my thing as a designer is plausibility, not perfection. Because Mothership has to fit a whole lot of different play styles, we can't have too many things that are like on their face laughably stupid. But if we have to calculate escape vector, whatever, like it's just not going to work for me.
There's a
Even
balance
traveling's
there.
way too hard.
Yeah, a definite balance there, because you want it to be fun, but at the same time, you don't want it to be insulting. You want it to be plausible. I think you really nailed it there, Sean, for sure. And I think the thing that I personally aim for is what I was told is called futurists, which is where you look at feasible, possible technology. Like in Minority Report, that has been applauded for its research in futurism, which is like, this is where we actually think technology will go. Or like in the cereal box, there were animated commercials and things like that. Like that might happen. So I love that stuff.
I think we're also going to need to cut off new questions now. Somebody put like, no new questions, otherwise we'll never finish.
That's true. I mean, we only have 9 more minutes before we're supposed to cut off. Let's do some shotgunning here. You ready?
Yeah.
Lightning round. Since the warning screens are different sizes, asks Noah Morris, will they contain different information, or the information just be scaled differently?
Yeah, there's going to be more information on the deluxe screen.
All right. Scrolling. My apologies if I miss you. Will you put up maps for download other than Dead Planet?
Yeah, so many of our maps are just like flowcharts. It didn't make sense to, but yeah, we are working on a gradient descent players map. We're not getting to that just yet, but it is something we are going to do.
Your father, Kevin McCoy, says, yeah, Harry Truman said that.
Oh, all right. Thanks,
all
Dad.
right. Thanks for the validation, Kevin. I love you. What's your favorite monster in the new book? Asks Jacob Marks.
Mine's a monster called Good, and it's only known by this description from Corporate Memos, basically saying, Tyler Kimball came up with this, basically saying, like, we don't know what it is about this creature, but they're altruistic, and they put others before themselves, and they seek no compensation, avoid or destroy at all costs. That's just like all we get about them. That's my favorite.
Mine isn't a new one, and mine I think was made by Donald. And
Donald Schultz, yeah.
Yeah, Donald Schultz, and that's the Dorian. I just love the Dorian, and we talk about the Dorian in our Psychic Tropics. Is that what it was called? In our adventure.
Psychotropics? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, in the adventure that I just re-released the video. You can find it on the Kickstarter page, but that's the adventure we go on. Really cool. Michael Haley asked, any world building advice for Mothership? I have zines, but want to put them together into a cohesive whole as much as possible. Are there good tools you can recommend or success stories you can tell?
The whole Warden's Guide is built around this premise of like building your own Warden's Guide out of a notebook. And in fact, it's like step 1, get a notebook. Step 2, invite your friends. And so a lot of that is about building a map, populating your map with modules and that kind of stuff. And then keeping track of stuff, keeping good notes, enemies, allies, factions, and letting the world build through play. I'm not a great world builder. In the abstract, I can't just sit down and come up with like interesting what if type stuff. But I am a good like world builder through play, where I let players have a lot of free range of what they do, and I go invent stuff where they go.
Yeah, you're really good at improv. I think, is this fair to say? I don't want to put you in a spot, Sean, that we are each other's favorite GMs.
I love playing with you. Yeah, you are a great GM.
Shonsky asks, Father Fog rules when?
Great question.
That is a great question. Stay tuned, and we'll try to give Father Fog a similar treatment to Mothership with recruiting playtesters and devos. So stay tuned. Ben Kelly asks, when you see a new RPG system, what excites you? I see a lot of rules light genre agnostic RPGs on Kickstarter, and I just don't get what they are creating at that point.
I'm not a big system guy, and I have a lot of opinions about like systems and what's valuable about them. But what gets me excited, without straying into the negatives, is new tools for stuff. So like if I see a cyberpunk game and it's got a lot of generative content about building cities and gangs and all that sort of stuff, that will get me excited because I feel like I can use that at my table today. That doesn't feel like work, like memorizing a system. That feels like play. Like, let's find out what happens in this world. So games that have a lot of toys to play with really are what get me pumped.
For me, novelty is a big thing. If you think of RPGs in a very mechanical way, there's almost this Rolodex of options when it comes to, all right, what is this system? Is it a D20? Is it D100? What is the experience? Is there magic? What does that look like? What is leveling up?
How's combat?
Like? And so every system either comes up with a unique new addition, a new card in that Rolodex, or a new combination of them. Like, oh, I never thought that those two could work together. So that novelty is what I really look forward to. Otherwise, it's all about the adventures, baby. It's the world, the theme, etc. But when it comes to mechanics, that's what gets me juiced, is the novelty. Sean, what's your favorite official Traveler setting or homebrew?
I like Traveler by itself. I don't I think Third Imperium is like an impressive like community project. I love that like online Third Imperium map, but I like Traveler like black box edition, no added stuff. I think I have a couple of like the books like Mercenaries I've got, and a couple others like that. But I like it sort of raw as a template to build your own world into.
Here's a good question by Null Terminated. Any planned support for people using Dissident Whispers? I think I can even answer that if you want.
Yeah, hit me. Yeah.
So as far as the support goes, Dissident Whispers, if you're unfamiliar, is this amazing collaborative piece of artwork that a whole bunch of individuals contributed to. And so it is just this motley crew of different adventures with all of the support going to Black Lives Matters, etc. And I even wrote one of the adventures that are in there, one I'm pretty proud of. But for anything that we don't have direct control of anymore, just the compatibility, switching from 0th edition to 1st edition, should be pretty simple. And I think that's at the very least what we can support. But as far as, oh yeah, we're going to re-release these adventures in 1st edition, no plans at this time to do so. I mean, it would be fun to tap into that. And if the designers of other Mothership adventures in Dissident Whispers reached out to us for that, we'd be more than happy to have that conversation. But right now, you're looking at the conversion kit. Is that right, Sean?
Yeah. Yeah. That book is done. Yeah.
Yeah, the book is done. And man, I love having it. It's amazing. Todd Pressler says, really thought there'd be more champagne in this live Q&A. Wanted to see you guys sloppy drunk and soaked in fancy French drinks. Chris Girding says that Alan is his hero. Not that impressive when you look at his last name. And then we also have the last questions. We're all caught up. We finally did it. Did they already answer if we should add to our pledge or the backer kit for add-ons? We didn't. You can do either one. My personal recommendation is wait for a backer kit, but you can add it on up front. Sean?
If you add it on up front, it goes towards stretch goals. If you add it on later, then you can add it on later. It's really your choice.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of like seeing your money now because it makes that ticker go up. But if I'm a backer, I'd wait for the backer kit. I mean, I'm hurting myself here. So, just dreaming a little. Would you ever work with Chris McDowell?
Under no circumstances.
No, Chris McDowell. Speaking of Dissonant Whippers, Morkborg Mothership crossover? Question mark?
We've talked to the Morkborg guys about doing some stuff together. Right now, we're just focusing on getting the line up and running, and after the box set, we can't get off the bicycle, right? We have to come out with a new hardcover module and keep things going. But it's definitely something we're talking to those guys about.
Sean, we've reached the questions. So now we are going to bring it to a close. And we get the opportunity to ask ourselves questions. So Sean, what is the question? Is there a question you feel wasn't asked that you'd like to answer?
Was there a question that...
I'll give you one right now.
Hit me, yeah.
This isn't really one that I expected to be asked, but it kind of was. How does it feel? How did 9 a.m. feel? How did 9:10 a.m. this morning feel? How does it feel?
You never get used to it. It's an exhilarating feeling. Kickstarter is great at sort of manufacturing these moments where everything sort of comes together and feels like a big party, and that we're sort of all in this together. And I think that's like a great feeling. I was really stressed a few days ago because the Kickstarter video wasn't done and I didn't have all the content on the page yet. And that is a terrifying feeling because you can't just like get a Kickstarter page together in a night. It's awful. There's just so much content you have to do, and you have to cross-check everything.
Yeah.
We're spending money on advertising with Backer Kit, and we have to like, okay, did we leave room and margin for this and that? But by the time it hit this morning, it was just like, at the end of the day, nothing we've done over the last 3 weeks is going to determine the success or failure of this campaign. The success or failure of this campaign was determined by our team over the past 3 years and by the community and fans. And so it's not that like things are fated and we have no control, but I could take a deep breath and go like, whatever happens, like this is what we prepared for.
Nice. In your answering of that question, did you think of any other question that you think should have been answered or asked?
Yeah, I would ask you a ton of stuff about Father Fog.
Should we talk about Father Fog? I don't know. We're out of time. Look at the time. Oh my goodness. I just want to shout out how much I love this shirt. It's still one of my favorite shirts. I love Mothership swag. All right.
He just likes doing this.
Sure. Hey, everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. It was great having you. We hope that you tune in again when we will have our next live show of questions and answers, and that will be November 30th. It'll be very close to the end of the campaign because the campaign ends on December 2nd. So maybe you'll have more questions, maybe more about the stretch goals, etc. So thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for all of your support. It is incredibly humbling. I love you, Sean. I love you so much.
I love you too, man.
Thanks. Appreciate you. All right. I think with that being said, thank you so much again. One last shout out for all the questions and participation, but I believe this live TKtv episode is...
Dave is a lie.